Well, hello everybody, this is Daniel with Daniel's Bullion Coins. I'm out here on the farm today and I thought I would do a video on productivity. Productivity is what you can accomplish in one day for fair value for a meal. So we've been talking about fair value for the stock market and gold and silver realigning to their fair value. And the component to that, as far as we humans are concerned, is the labor, the effort, the time that you put in to produce something, your productivity, and whether or not that productivity is worthy of a meal, whether it's worthy of a roof over your head. That's what I believe we're about to find out with our financial system. So I was on the farm today and yesterday. Today's Wednesday, and I built this fence and this enclosure for the chicks right here today. And we've got 27 little black Morans here. And I started this project at about 9 o'clock this morning. And you can see the fence, it runs all the way down, runs over. This is about 100 feet of fence right here. It runs back, ties into an existing 50 foot of fence, and then another 80 foot of white fence right here. So, and I've got the net across the top of it. My point for, this is not the Homestead channel, this is Daniel's Bullion Coins. The point is productivity. I started at 9 and I stayed on it until I finished, which was about 2 o'clock. And had to accomplish this, had to get this job done. Could not stretch it out for 2, 3 days, a week, a month like the government does. I had to go ahead and get it done in order to be productive, to move on to the next thing that would come up. And fortunately I went in at about 2, had lunch, sat down, talked with Ingrid for a few minutes, and the phone rang and the tractor was ready to pick up. So I was able to jump in the truck and go pick up my tractor, which was being repaired at the tractor shop. So, and yesterday, which was Tuesday, I did 25 chickens into the freezer. Completely processed them all by myself. There again, I stayed on it until I finished it in about 6 hours. So it was 2, 3 o'clock when I finished. And that's being productive. That's completing a task to its fullest so you can walk away, it's done, you don't have to come back to it. And being able to see what needs to be preventative to keep something from robbing you of your time. You have to do the preventative thing to be productive. So we're looking at productivity in line with fair value. My dad used to say, you don't even know what a day's work is. When I was little, you don't even know what a day's work is. And it's true. I think a lot of people nowadays, they have no concept of what productivity or what a day's work is, or a day's work that equals, back in Roman times, it was a silver dime. And that was the lower paid level. If you were like a police officer, or you worked as a soldier, police officer, comparing it to today, and a soldier in Rome, you made about a dime a day. And the skilled labor, people who produced above and beyond, they could have gotten a quarter or 50 cents worth of silver, half of an ounce, and maybe as much as a full ounce per day, depending on your productivity. So I believe we're heading back to fair value and productivity. Will you be able to produce enough product or accomplishment at the end of the day to justify 3 square meals and to save a little bit for room and board or roof over your head? And I think that a lot of people are going to be shocked at what productivity and fair value truly mean. And that's where we're headed, is back to fair value and productivity. You do a day's worth of work, you get paid a day's wage. And I believe we're still in equal times where a silver dime paid a Roman soldier, a silver dime pays a police officer his wage, and someone a little bit more skilled, a little bit more productive, gets a quarter, and then up to 50 cents, and then even up to $1.40 in dimes, quarters, and halves, which equals 1 ounce. So just think about productivity and what that means to you and what that looks like to you, and try to wrap your head around it. You know, maybe look at it in firewood. How much firewood do I have to cut and stack and sell in order to justify a day's pay? One of the ways that I learned productivity and a day's effort was when I was working at McDonald's. As a young fella, I would work at McDonald's flipping burgers and putting the mustard and the ketchup and the pickles and the meat or whatever as fast as I could to get that accomplished in time to keep up with the demand that was coming for the calls for the burgers and the fries. So I took the demand and met that with a product as a young man, and I learned that there. And later that evolved into construction, where I would take a project, a building project, and let's say the project paid $20,000. And I needed to pay the guys and myself $5,000 per week. Well, we needed to finish that project in 4 weeks. And then you could divide it up. Okay, we need to have the roof on the 4th week. We need to have the walls done on the 3rd week. We need to have the windows, the floor in on the 2nd week. We need to have a real good start the 1st week. And then you can divide it down to the day, down to the project, the walls, or down to just half the walls. You can divide it down to the seconds, the minutes. And there would be many times we would be working and I would say, the fellows would say, let's take a break. I say, no, we've got to get to this point before break, before lunch, before we go home, in order to be productive and meet the $20,000 income that we were going to get off of that project. So productivity parlayed into the construction business, making sure that it was done right, and done productively. And if I had employees that weren't producing, you know, because you can divide it down in your head, this person needs to accomplish this much before break, this much before lunch, and this much before the end of the day, this much before the end of the week, this much before the end of the month when we get our 20,000. If they're not completing their task, they're not being productive. And it boils down the same way with food. If you're not getting the seedlings in the ground, if you're not weeding, not watering on schedule, on time, you're not going to be productive and produce produce at the end of the season that's going to sustain you. You need a certain amount of produce to sustain you through the winter. Produce, production, fair value. Wow, I hope you're catching all this. It's really powerful stuff. I want to thank everybody for watching. Okay, I'm on the porch for the rest of this video that I'm going to do for Daniel's Bullion Coins. And earlier we were talking about productivity, but the second half I'm going to wrap up confiscation. We talked about confiscation in the last video, and I decided to just do a little diagram here of an example just to explain things a little bit further. So 1933, we had the Executive Order 6201. Franklin Delano Roosevelt wrote that and confiscated the gold. And what that did is that made the price of gold nearly double. We're not going to do exact numbers. We're just going to get the information out there. Gold doubled in value, giving the government a huge boost to, like we've said, do things that they wanted to do. Welfare, start the welfare state. Look at how it's grown. Look at how very small the welfare state started out and how it's grown so exponentially over these nearly 100 years now. The cash devalued. So if you turned in your gold, your cash devalued. And if you were a laborer, your productivity went towards future. They were able to take your productivity and spend it from the future. And that's what we've done. We've taken from the future our productivity and brought it to the present on the backs of the laborer and on the back of the saver. So what we have three different people here. The ones that make it happen, the ones that watch it happen, and the ones that wonder what the hell happened. It's time to get up to speed, informed, and get ready for what's about to happen. Here we are in 2022. We're talking about inflation. We've robbed from the future productivity and it spent it in the present. Well, what happens is eventually inflation starts to come into the currency, where people don't want to hold the currency. They don't want to take the currency because it's losing its value. There's too much of it. Too much of the productivity has been taken out. So we unhooked and we began to manipulate the price of gold and silver and manipulate the future, because we didn't have anything holding us accountable like gold and silver does. Gold and silver is the ultimate store of productivity. You go out and you dig silver out of the ground and you pan gold on the side of the river all day, you get the ultimate sense of productivity, and you can spend that day. But if I hand you paper dollars and I start adding zeros to those paper dollars and turn them into tens and hundreds and thousands and then trillions, that's what we've done between 1933 and 2022. We've taken that labor, the guy standing on the bank, and we've brought all of his labor into the future, from the future into the present. So we've unhooked, and we've been able to manipulate all these years, and the politicians love it because they can write themselves millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. The cash, you had to work double. So we ended up with two incomes. We break down the family, and we need double income in order to be productive enough to pay the taxes, pay the government, and keep the printing money going. And over time, we've been able to absorb expenses from our productivity. So if a hot water heater breaks in your house, you need to have been productive to pay someone to fix that. Well, when 9/11 happened, or the wars happened, or Katrina or Enron, we took from the future. We borrowed the money. We borrowed the money from the future. Well, now the future wants interest on that money. And so the interest is having and needing to climb in order to justify taking it from the future. Because you can go and get a loan to fix the hot water heater, but you're going to take it from your productivity in the future. And your salary is going to be cut in half, because the interest on that hot water heater, by the time you pay it out 8 years or 10 years, that person is going to double the money that loaned it to you, and you're going to work twice as hard. On top of that, the guy who's wondering what the hell happened, his salary, 70%, 80% of his salary is going to fuel and food. And he doesn't understand that he's not going to make it, because the interest on the debt and the debt itself is now catching up to the people, the government, who took it and inflated it. That's what inflation is. Over the 100 years, nearly 100 years, 90 years that we've been doing this. And they're going to keep it going as long as they possibly can, because they want to pull as much productivity out of the laborer and out of the watchers as they possibly can. So we have the future right here, and we're asking ourselves, okay, are they going to confiscate gold and silver? And here it is, the IRS is buying up all this ammunition, and the gun laws are getting stricter and stricter. Every time we turn around, they're getting stricter and stricter on the gun laws. So the IRS is arming, and other agencies, I can't remember, I heard it on the news, but there are other agencies that are arming that don't really need to be arming themselves. Why is the IRS arming itself? Because if they need to, they know that ultimately it goes back to gold. It ultimately goes back to gold. And they're going to want everybody to be dependent. I believe that's why we have the food crisis problems happening, the delivery problems that are happening, is because they need everybody compliant for a digital currency where they can pull productivity from these guys, the wanderers, and the people storing their cash. They can pull productivity from them as they go along, as they're working. But the gold person, they can hold all of their productivity. They can store it. It's not going to change. It's got 6,000 years of history. Well, that was just a little quick I wanted to wrap up the confiscation thing. I did the coins. We talked about what kind of coin to have to protect yourself in the future, what kind of coin was excluded from confiscation. These are the kind of coins that we recommend. It's the Liberty and the St. Gaudens, PCGS, MS62, MS63. Well, this was really fun. If anybody has any questions, please put it in the comment. I will respond. Thank you so much for your time.